Okay. It's Wednesday, September 28th, 2005. We have Grandma. Smile, Grandma. Grandma's going to tell us about a lot of things. Okay, anything you want to tell the camera first?
Well, let me see. Where do you want to start? What year?
Oh, well, when was your birthday?
My birthday is November the 24th
Of?
1918.
Oh, okay. You remember?
I can't go back that far because
No.
I couldn't talk then.
When was Grandpa's birthday?
His was February 17th. His was, he was 3 years older than me.
Okay. Well, he's not here to
No.
talk on camera, so we'll have
No.
to talk for him. Okay. Why don't we start with when you were growing up. Tell us about the price of gas and how much rent you paid and just general prices. How much a candy bar, that kind of thing.
Oh, the price of gas was around, let's see, when I was about 11 years old, it was about 35 cents a gallon. And the candy was 5 cents a bar, and the penny candy, some of it was 5 pieces for a penny. So you go in there with $10 and you come out with a bag full.
Oh, yeah. And what about, how much was your rent?
When we got married, we moved down here. The rent was $30 a month, and then when the house was sold, we had to move. Our rent was $20 a month.
So it went down?
It went down.
Oh, okay. All right. And what was Grandpa's job when you got married? What was he doing?
He worked in a freehold rug mill, and he made $17 a week.
Mm-hmm.
$10 of that went to his mother for our room and board, because we lived with her when we first got married.
Oh, okay. All right.
So he made $17 a week, and then he gave her $10, so that left us with $7, and some of that went towards insurance and gas for the car. The first car we bought was an old Ford, and we paid $50 for it.
And how much did he give you to go grocery shopping?
When we were married and we lived down the street here, it was $6 a week.
So he give you $6 and you go grocery shop. Well, he go with you.
He went with me, yeah. It was $6. And I bought more groceries in than I'm buying today for $150.
Okay. And tell us about, you said you used to have a hot dog for lunch every day. Your mom would leave you a dime on the table?
Oh, yeah. When I come home from school, lunch was at 12 o'clock. School let everybody out, and we had to come back by 1 o'clock. When I come home, of course, there was nobody there, but there was 10 cents on the table. So I took the 10 cents and went out and went around the corner to the butcher shop and got 2 hot dogs for 10 cents.
And you ate hot dogs every day?
Every day I had hot dogs.
You get tired of them?
No.
Oh, okay. Now tell us about the bakery that Grandpa had. How did he get that started up?
He always wanted to own his own bakery. We rented a place over in Farmingdale.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bakery over there. And then he also had a bread route. And he stopped the bread route when he bought when he went into the bakery, into the store. When he bought he didn't buy the store, he rented it.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that for a while, and then he gave that up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started his own business with door-to-door. He sold Freihofer stuff.
Freihofer?
Yeah, they still make Freihofer today.
Yeah, I recognize it. And then you only...
He also worked for Bond Bread. He drove a truck for Bond Bread and delivered bread to people's houses. And in those days, they had their milk and their bread delivered right to the door. But they don't do that anymore.
Mm.
So he used to deliver... first he delivered Bond Bread. He worked for Bond Bread. And then he got a job with selling Freihofer stuff.
Mm. Now, did you only learn how to drive the bread truck when you thought he might be drafted?
Yeah, I drove it. I rode with him for a couple of weeks, and
to learn
the route. And then when he went for his physical, I took the truck and delivered the stuff to the store and to the different houses.
Mm-hmm. But then they told him that they couldn't take him. Why? Because he
had high blood pressure.
Oh, okay. So then he went back to driving the truck, I guess.
He went back to driving the truck.
Okay. Oh, what about the farm? How did that get started?
What farm?
The farm here.
This is a farm?
Well, the barn, the animals, all the...
Oh, well, Peggy always wanted a horse. And so we bought her Danny, big brown and white quarter horse. Beautiful horse, like a kitten he was. But we didn't have a place to keep him. So the man that owned the property next door before we bought it, he had chicken coop. So Danny was in the end chicken coop.
Mhm.
It's a big long one that's over there.
Right.
Danny was in there. So then Grandpa thought, well, he'll build a barn. So the only thing that we put money into, I think it was $90 was about all we spent to build a barn other than buying nails.
Mhm.
And the man that lived in the house next to the greenhouse,
Mhm.
he came home with a load of lumber. 2x4s and big planks and sheets of plywood and the whole thing. So when he saw Grandpa, he says, "Can you use some of this wood?" Grandpa said, "I sure can." So he gave us all the wood, and most of the wood that was in the barn we got for nothing.
Mm.
All brand new wood.
And Grandpa built the barn?
Grandpa built the barn himself.
By himself? Nobody helped him?
No, he did
Oh,
it by
okay.
himself. Put the roof on and built the porch on it and everything. Built the stalls inside.
Oh, okay.
And the beams on the floor where the horses walked and in their stalls, we got from an old barn.
Mhm.
And it didn't cost. It cost us $90 to put a roof on.
Oh.
Grandpa put the roof on. It cost him $90 for shingles.
How much did this house cost, by the way, when you moved here?
$3,500.
Wow. And what, you remember what year you moved here?
Let me see. Ruth Ann she was born in February. I was 24 years old when she was born.
And she was already born when you moved to this house?
Oh yeah. She was, let's see, she was 4 years old when we lived on Bangs Avenue. That's when she got into all the trouble.
Right. We'll hear about that soon.
So, well, we lived here about 60 years.
Mhm.
And we paid $3,500. And our rent over in the other house, our rent was $20 a month. We didn't have a water bill because we had an electric pump in the cellar.
Mhm.
We got the water out of the ground. And we had electric. And we didn't have any gas. I had a gasoline stove.
Mhm.
And you had to pump that up, and it used to scare me because the gasoline was right on top
Oh, yeah.
of the stove. So we had very few bills over there. No water bill, no gas bill, but we did have a electric bill. That was about the only thing. We didn't have a telephone then either.
Oh.
And Ruth Ann was about 4 years old when we moved there.
Mhm. Okay. And the house that I live in, the red house, you paid, well, Grandpa paid $500 for that,
He
right?
paid $500 for it.
And what was the story with the church? The church burned down, or
No.
it was?
No. It was the minister's house, and it was right next door to the church. And Grandpa heard that the church was going to tear it down because they bought a new house for the minister right in back of the church. That development in the back.
Mhm.
They bought him the new house that came right up to where the church property was.
Mhm.
So they bought him that house. So they were going to tear it down, and it was going to cost them $500 to tear it down. So Grandpa says, well, it was a shame to tear it down because it's a nice house. So he told the church, he says, I'll buy the church, I'll buy the house from you, and that way you'll be in 500 instead of out of 500. So we hired a man, a little colored guy from Red Bank. His name was Duffy Fisher. And we hired him to move the house, and he did it all by himself with an old truck and great big huge beams.
Mhm.
And he moved it all across, and we got permission from the two neighbors to move it across because there was no trees there.
Mhm.
And they said, yes, you could move it across. And while the house was being moved, we had the foundation dug and the cement block and everything put in, the basement and everything. So by the time Duffy moved the house over to the yard, the foundation was all ready. And I don't know how he ever moved that house by himself and put it on the top of that foundation, and it was on perfect. It wasn't over an inch or anything. It was just perfect. Like he just picked it up and set it down.
And he used that soap, right?
And he used Kirkman soap. He used that to rub the beams.
Mhm.
So when he pulled the the house over, it
It
would
would
slide
slide on.
on the beams.
Mhm.
And that's why I bought that Kirkman soap at the flea market.
Oh, there it is. It's right over
Yeah,
there.
right over there.
Okay.
Kirkman soap.
There's Margaret right there. Okay. Let's see. Okay, and tell us about what you donated to the Neptune Historical Society and your town involvement and all that kind of stuff. And
Well, Grandpa was a chairman of the planning board, and he was president of the Historical Society, and he was chairman for the what was that? For the something else in the township. He was on the planning board, and then he was in for the library.
okay.
He was chairman of the library, and it was because of him they were going to rent a little building up on Corley's Avenue, that's near downtown, and they were going to rent one of those buildings there and have the museum in there. But at that time, the township was building a new municipal building. So he was a chairman of the planning board and everything, he suggested that as long as they were putting up a new building for the township, to add an extra room at the end of it for a library, and then make a room upstairs over the library for the historical society, for the the museum up over the library. So it was his idea to have, that's why the library and the museum is there, because it was his idea to, instead of spending money to fix up the place down there, just to put a new building on right on the end.
Right.
That's what they did.
And what did you donate?
I donated an old school desk, and I donated an old milk container, those great big milk containers, and Grandpa donated a lot of his Indian stuff. And I drew a picture of Old Trapp Tavern. That's still hanging on the wall in the library. I did that with pen and ink, and it's still hanging there. And
So you guys put the first few things in there to get it started.
yeah, yeah.
And then people slowly added to
Yeah,
it.
and then I had apple dolls in there too. They wanted some apple dolls. That was years ago.
Okay. And talk about Grandpa's involvement with the Boy Scouts and the Indians and all that other kind of stuff
Well,
that
he was
doing.
he was
his
a
lecturing.
scoutmaster for troop. I think it was Troop 94, and he was a scoutmaster for quite a few years. And he used to go around to the different Boy Scout troops and give lectures on the New Jersey Indian. And one night the Scouts were having a big dinner, and one of the scoutmasters asked him if he would give a little speech about the American Indians to all of them, and he did. And when he got done, a man in the audience got up and said that he had this very old Indian pot, and he said that two men were walking on a trail up in the mountains in North Jersey, and as they were walking along the trail, they saw a piece of pottery sticking out of the soil. So they took their fingers and they dug around it, and the more they thought it was just a chip off of a pot, but they kept digging around it with their hands and very carefully digging all the way around it, and when they got the whole thing all dug, it was this beautiful old Indian pot. And so they gave it to this scoutmaster. But when Grandpa gave the speech and talked about the New Jersey Indians, he says he came up and he gave Grandpa the pot and says, "Here, you should have this." And that's where he got it from. And it must be 300 or 400 years old. I don't know. Whenever there was Indians in North Jersey.
Wow, and he was real happy to get that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's talk about Mom.
Oh, Mom.
Let's talk about when she was bad.
Well, it was the house we lived on in Bangs Avenue. in the living room, underneath where the couch was. It was one long wall, and we had the couch there. But in back of the couch, on the floor, was a big hole. And my stepfather was there. That it was just before Christmas. And he was sitting in the living room, and he called me in. And Grandpa was going to make a toy or something for Ruth Ann for Christmas. So my stepfather called me in and says, Ruth Ann is under the couch.
I haven't heard this story before.
She was under the couch. And she crawled in on her hands and stomach and was under the couch and looking down through the hole, watching her father build her Christmas present. So I let her stay there, but she heard him working down there.
Yeah.
So she crawled under, and she knew the hole was there.
Yeah.
It was the hole about so big.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would drill a hole in the floor like that.
Yeah.
But she laid there, and she watched him all the while he's working in the cellar at her Christmas present.
Okay. What about the times that she asked to go to the neighbors? You said okay, and then she didn't come back.
She wanted to go next door and see Mrs. Emmons. I said, okay, and I watched her walk across the yard over and go up the steps to Mrs. Emmons' house. Well, she was there for quite a while, and I said, oh, she must be pestering Mrs. Emmons something terrible. I better go over and get her. So I went next door and knocked on the door, and I says, I come to pick up for Ruth Ann. She said, oh, she's not here. I says, what do you mean she's not here? I saw her come over. She says, oh, she left quite a while ago. I says, oh my God. So I come home and I stood in the backyard, and I didn't know what to do, where to look, or where did she go, when all of a sudden in the yard comes this great big yellow taxi cab. And who gets out of the taxi cab but Ruth Ann? She decided to take a walk. And
she walked far too.
She walked from our house all the way up to the city dumps, which is a long walk. Even I couldn't walk that far. And the colored guy come along in his taxi cab, and he saw her walking around in the dumps. So he stopped and he picked her up and put her in his cab. And then on the way home, he stopped at every house on both sides of the street to see if anybody was missing a little girl. And of course everybody said no. And then he pulled into my yard and he says, are you missing a little girl? I says, yes. And out of the cab came Ruth Ann with a dirty old can lid or something that she picked up in the dumps.
She's still picking trash today.
She's paying for it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then after that, you put a rope around her in the backyard.
Yeah. After that, I got a rope. I bought a harness and put a harness on it like a dog. And then I got the rope and I tied it to the back of the harness, and I tied it to a tree. And I kept checking on her to see what she was doing. And I looked out, and she wasn't there. But I looked at the tree, and the rope was around the tree, and I followed the rope, and it went inside the garage. The garage door was open, and the other door was shut. So she went inside the garage. So I went out to see what she was doing, and she was backed up to the corner with her hands behind her back trying to undo the knot.
You got any other mom stories? I think those are the only ones I've heard.
What else did she do? I can't think of anything else that she did.
But we can go on to something else. Then if you think of something later, you can stop me and you can tell me about it. Okay, how did you and Grandpa meet?
Oh, well, his mother and my mother lived next door to each other in Kenilworth, New Jersey.
Oh, that's right. You said you were neighbors. I forgot about that.
Yeah, they were neighbors. And his mother was pregnant, and my mother wasn't yet. You know, I wasn't on the way yet. And she was there visiting with her when she had Grandpa was about to be born, you know.
Oh, okay.
So she left the house and she went up to somebody that lived on the street in back of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she had the baby in some neighbor's house. And then Grandpa was 3 years old when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got old enough, we played together.
Mm-hmm.
We played when we were little.
Right.
And then when I got older, I used to go. His father died, and she couldn't afford to live there because she wasn't working. So she moved to Freehold to live with her father, or her grandfather rather, and they lived there for years. And then in the summertime, I used to go there for a couple of weeks during the school vacation.
Oh, so you stayed with them?
I stayed with them in Freehold for a couple of weeks.
And how old were you at this point? Like teenagers, or?
No, I was much younger than that.
Oh.
Much younger than
Still
that.
kids playing together?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we played together. And then he had a brother, which I never liked,
What was his name?
Johnny.
Why didn't you like Johnny?
I just didn't like the way he was. It was kind of nasty, like, you know. And,
Was that his only sibling?
yeah.
One brother?
Yeah,
Okay.
Johnny. And one day when I went to their house in Freehold for 2 weeks in the summer, they had a hammock in the backyard attached to two apple trees. So I was laying in the hammock, and you know when you lay in the hammock, your bottom goes
Right.
like a ball underneath the
Oh,
hammock.
God. What did Grandpa
So
do?
I had my eyes closed, laying in the hammock, and his brother come along, and up with his foot and kicked me in the rear end just as hard as he could.
Oh.
And I said some cuss words at him and ran at him and chased him, and he ran up on the back steps. And while we're running, there was a tin horn laying on the ground, and I picked up the tin horn, and just as he was about to go in the back door, I threw the horn, and it hit him right smack in the back of the head and cut his head open.
Oh,
and
no.
had blood all running down.
This is
his
your
face.
future brother-in-law.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Well, when did you and Grandpa finally get together?
One time when my sister had she worked for the telephone company, she had 2 weeks vacation. And my mother says, why don't you go stay with Margaret? That was Grandpa's mother. Her name was Margaret. So I went there and we got together. He was a lifeguard at the pond in Freehold. And he was there on weekends because he worked during the week. But on Sundays, when everybody was at the pond, he was a lifeguard there. So his mother says, why don't you take Ellen with you? Because she's got nothing to do here. Why don't you take her out and while you're being a lifeguard, she can go in the water and go swimming and whatnot. And that's how we got together.
Oh, how old were you then?
I was married when, I was married when I was 19. 19 years old.
Well, from the time of this...
And Ruth Ann was born when I was 24 years old.
Okay. So how long before you originally got together with him did you get married?
Oh, several years, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I don't really remember. It's so long ago.
Yeah. Okay.
We got married in the church in Cranford. It was the church I went to when I was a little girl.
You have a big wedding, a small wedding?
Very small, just family. We went back to my sister's for dinner. We just had the family there.
So Grandpa's mother's name was Margaret, his brother's name was Johnny. What was his father's name?
You know, I have a paper. His brother found it in the newspaper. And the newspaper would have articles, what happened 30 years ago, what happened. And there was a new article in there about what happened 50 years ago. And the article was about Grandpa's father. And when he worked cutting ice. In those days, they didn't make ice the way they do it today. That when the pond, that's when they had really cold winters, and the pond would freeze and it would get real thick ice on it. Well, he would chop blocks of ice, and then they'd put it they'd take it to a shed and cover the ice, the cubes of, the things of ice with straw so that it wouldn't melt, and they'd have it for the summer. And he, on his way to work, he had his lunch pail with him and everything. And when he got to where he was supposed to cut the ice and everything, he dropped dead.
Oh.
And they found him. He must have had a heart attack, and he still had his overcoat on, and his lunch pail was still with him. So he just went to go to work, and then he just died. And that article was in the paper that happened 50. I'll get it if you want to wait. Okay,
well maybe at the end when we're done here you can get it and I'll see it. I'll I don't know how long this tape is going to last. Do you remember what his name was, or no? I'm sure it's
I
somewhere
forget.
in the article. Okay.
It could have been Charlie. I don't know. I'll have to check the paper and see.
Okay.
His mother's name was Margaret, and his aunt's name was Ethel.
So Aunt Peggy was named, I guess, after his mother.
Margaret, Peggy was named after his mother, and her middle name was Elizabeth after my mother. So it was Margaret Elizabeth.
And Mom, you got Ruth Ann from a soap character you liked, right?
This was before television.
Oh, the radio soap,
It
right?
was a radio soap, and I used to have a little radio on that shelf right back here. And I used to have the ironing board here. And when I did my ironing, I put that soap on. And I used to have it on every day. And it was about two sisters, and one of them, they were both married to doctors. And the one girl's name was Ruth Ann. And I kind of liked that name. So when Ruth Ann was born, I named her after that girl that was on the soap on the radio.
Does she know that's where she got her name from?
I don't know if she does or not,
Oh,
but that's where I got her from.
Well, she'll know now. So your mom's name was Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, wait a minute, she's got a big name. Elizabeth, oh God. Oh, she's had three names. Elizabeth, I can't remember what it now. She had three. Elizabeth, no, I got it. Elizabeth Lindsay Chalmers Fife Mackenzie Warman. Warman was her second marriage.
But she's...
Mackenzie was her first. Her maiden name was Fife.
Okay.
Elizabeth Lindsay Chalmers Fife.
So she had like two middle names.
Elizabeth Lindsay Chalmers Fife. Three names. Elizabeth Lindsay
Yeah, her first
Chalmers.
name and two middle names and a last name, and then she got married.
Fife was her last name. And she was so talkative in school that the teacher had to yell at her and she called her a musical instrument because her name was Fife.
Oh.
So she called her a musical instrument.
And what was your father's name? Your real father? Because you had a
James.
Okay, and then you had a James...
James Andrew, I think his name was.
Okay. Mackenzie was his last name?
Mackenzie.
Okay. And then what was your stepfather's name?
Warman.
Okay. So you're...
William Warman.
And you didn't like him?
He was from Canada.
But you didn't like him, right?
Not too much, no. He was all right, but no.
Who's the one that the guy who used to come to the house to deliver the prescriptions on the horse? Was it your stepfather that chased him away?
That was a boy I was stuck on when I was in 8th grade. One of the nicest boys I ever met.
But it was your stepfather that didn't want him hanging around, right?
Yeah, because he was a Catholic and he was a foreigner, because his parents were Polish.
Oh.
And I really liked that guy. He was the nicest guy I ever met. And he was walking me home from school one day, and my father happened to come along and seen him walking. All we're doing was walking along the street and talking and everything. And he stopped the car and he yelled for me to get in. And then after I got in, he pulled up alongside of Mike. His name was Michael Statz. And he pulled up alongside of him and told him to stay away from me and all this crap, you know. So I felt bad about that. And then one day, Mike, he knew the guy that owned the drugstore. And when the druggist had prescriptions to have delivered, Mike would deliver them. And the druggist owned a horse, and there was a big open space just before you went into the main section of town, and way in the back was this huge red barn, and that's where the druggist kept his horse. And sometimes when Mike had to deliver my mother's prescription, he'd drive over to the house on the horse. And then he delivered her a prescription one day, and the two of them stood in the doorway talking real nice and everything. So after Mike left, my stepfather says, "Who was that? He seems like a very nice young man." And my mother says, "That is the one you yelled at and told to keep away from Ellen."
Yeah.
So then after that, he came back another time, and my mother told him that I was married and had two daughters.
Mhm.
And he says, well, I beat her. I have 3 daughters.
Mhm.
So he had gotten married.
Yeah.
But boy, he was the nicest guy I ever met. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy.
Mm.
And my father wouldn't let me go with him because he was Polish, a foreigner as he called him,
Mm.
and he was a Catholic.
Did they like Grandpa?
Who?
Your parents?
Oh yeah, of course they know when he was a little boy.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, when he was a little boy.
Now, what happened between your mother and your father? Did your father pass away, or they got a divorce, or what happened that your
My
mom?
real father?
Yeah.
He had diabetes, and he had it very bad. And he had a stroke, and his diabetes was so bad, they didn't have the things then like they have today. And he had both his legs amputated. And he had the first leg that was amputated was a wooden leg. It's a lot different than, it was a regular leg,
Mhm.
but it was wood.
Mhm.
And it fastened to his upper leg. And he used to limp when he walked down the street. And then they had to amputate his other leg, so he ended up in a wheelchair.
Oh.
And then he had a stroke, and he couldn't talk. So then he died.
Oh, that's horrible. And
Yeah.
your mom was married to him the whole time during this?
Yeah, yeah.
So then she was a widow then, and then she
Yeah.
remarried your stepfather.
She met my stepfather in church.
Oh,
There
okay.
was a church in Plainfield that they went to, a Methodist church in Plainfield.
And how old were you when your real father died?
8 years old. He died in 1926.
Was it a long time later when your mom remarried, or was it kind of soon after?
I think I was about 10 or 11.
Oh, so not
Not
so.
too long ago.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
and then my mother moved to. He was taking care of a gas station for this man that owned it. And he run the gas station, and they had a house next to the gas station, and the downstairs had a dining room for people that wanted coffee or tea or a sandwich. And then in the other room was cigarettes and cigars and candy and soda and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Or if somebody wanted a sandwich, there was a little kitchen in the back. And if they wanted a sandwich or something, my mother would make it and they would eat it inside the... So she took care of that, and he took care of the gas station.
Mhm.
And then the man sold the business, and that's when my mother moved to South Plainfield.
Oh. And what about this wasn't on my list, but I'm just remembering now. Who was baptized at Westminster Abbey and the Queen of England was there? Was that your grandmother?
That was my mother.
Your mother?
When she was born. She came to this country from England when she was 5 years old.
Mhm.
So
But she was baptized there in England,
she was baptized in the
Westminster Abbey.
Westminster Abbey.
Mhm. And the Queen of England was there that day when she was baptized?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Oh, I thought you had told me that
no,
once.
No.
Okay. Okay, what about the thing you were telling me about where a doctor delivered a baby and he charged 50 cents? What was that?
Oh, that was an old book I found, and it was a doctor's record book. He had all his patients listed and what was wrong with them, what he charged them. And this woman had a baby, and he charged her 50 cents.
To deliver it.
To deliver the baby, 50 cents.
Let's see. I got 2 more things here. Grandpa on the motorcycle, when he used to stand on the motorcycle,
Yeah.
what was he doing with that?
Well, he used to own a motorcycle, and he'd ride it. He'd ride past where his mother was and scare the hell out of her. He'd go up the road on a motorcycle, stand there and hold the handlebars. And he almost died when seeing him doing that.
Oh. Did you ever see him do it?
No.
Oh.
No. That was before we went together.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then what about the thing with the park bench on top of the statue or whatever it was the prank that he
Him
played
and
with his friends?
in Freehold, in back of the courthouse, there's a park. I think it's still there. And there was a monument in there that went way up. It was real tall. And it had ridges around it.
Mhm.
So Grandpa was there with some of his friends and not knowing what to do. One of them decided, let's see if we can get a bench up on top of the thing. So they got it. I says, how in the world did you ever get that bench up on there? And he says, well, we stood on each other's shoulder. And when they went up, they stood on the round concrete rim that was around it. So they got it up there, and they hung the wooden bench up on top of the monument. And the township, they didn't know how that thing got up there. They don't know who did it. To this day, they don't know who did it. And I don't know how they got it down, unless they had a machine to go in there and take it down, or did something.
Well, I guess someone else had to go in there and take it down.
Yeah. But they didn't know what to do with themselves, and they thought that was, well, you know how kids are. They think of the damnedest things, and then...
Yeah. Can you remember anything that Aunt Peggy did when she was little? Or Tricia, or me, or anybody in the family, anything else that anybody did?
Peggy never did anything. Ruth Ann was the one that was always
getting into trouble.
Into mischief. Yeah. And one night she wouldn't go to bed. I put her to bed, and she got out. She didn't want to go to bed. And I said, well, your father and I want to go to bed, so we're going to go to bed. And she was walking up and down, sucking on her thumb and carrying her blanket with her. I said, if you want to walk up and down the hall all night, you go ahead and do it, because Daddy and I are going to go to bed. So for a long time, she went back and forth, back and forth in the hallway. So finally I got up. It was getting late, so finally I picked her up and put her in bed, and I said, you just stay there.
What about Tricia? Can you remember anything she did when she was younger?
No, I wasn't around Tricia much. You know, because Peggy had her all the time. No, I can't remember Tricia doing anything bad.
The few things I remember Howie. I remember when he was young and real rambunctious, and I was afraid of him. And every time we'd come over, you'd lock Howie in the kitchen. You'd have to shut the kitchen door.
Yeah.
So you and Mom would be in here, and then I'd be out there. And one time he got out. No one knew, because you guys were here in the kitchen talking. And he chased me all around the house, and I burst into the kitchen, and I jumped into Mom's arms. And no one knew that he had even gotten out. But after that, I was okay with him.
I don't remember Howie being that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was little, so for me, he was kind of a wild dog when I was little.
Yeah.
Muffy, I was never afraid of her because she was always so calm and just...
Muffy was very nice, very quiet dog, and so was Shotzi.
Yeah, I remember...
Shotzi was my favorite.
Yeah.
Shotzi slept with me all night.
Yeah, I remember her,
I miss that dog.
And down here is the treat drawer. We used to give Muffy the Stella D'Oro, the vanilla and chocolate cookies. Those long things.
Yeah.
I used to call them Muffy cookies.
That's the goodie drawer.
Yeah.
It's still full of cookies.
Yeah, I know. All these years, the drawer is still full of
cookies.
Yep, cookies and candy. Yep, we'd feed Muffy cookies. And then I remember, too, after Brookside, the bus used to drop me off here, and we'd sit here, and we'd look out the door, and we'd have pudding pops. Jell-O pudding pops. Used to keep those. We'd have vanilla and chocolate, and you had no limit. You'd let me eat as many pudding pops as I want. And then Dad would come from next door with that big, remember that big loud green car he had?
Yeah.
That Pontiac or whatever. That thing was real loud. And he used to come pick me up, and then we'd go back to Spring Lake. But I guess I came here every day.
I know I had Mike and Lisa every day when Ruth Ann went back to work in the phone company.
Can you remember anything they did?
No, they were very well behaved. They were a couple of good kids. Couple of good kids. I had a lot of toys, and they used to sit on the floor in the living room and play with them, blocks and things, and they'd build houses. And they were very quiet. Just give them a bunch of blocks and things, and they'd build houses, and they'd be in there quiet. There were no problem at all. No.
Can you think of anything else you want to tell the camera? Something that we can have for years to come?
I can't think of anything now.
What about the Depression? How did that affect you and Grandpa? Were you hit by that at all?
Well, that was before we were married.
Oh, okay.
That was, what, 1929 or something? That's when it was.
And what about your family and stuff? Do you remember?
Well, my mother, she worked as a janitor in a school in the daytime, in the school I went to. And at night she worked in a factory sewing up these huge paper bags. I guess they used them for shipping cotton or old rags. That's, huge things. And she would do that at night. and then she would take me there with her because she didn't want to leave me alone.
Mhm. So she worked 2 jobs.
She worked 2 jobs.
Did she
And-
work 2 jobs before the Depression, or she got 2 jobs after?
After.
Oh, okay.
She used to cane chairs and weave baskets. That's how she made some money to put food on the table.
Mhm.
And she had a lot of orders in those days for putting cane seats in.
Mhm.
And baskets, if anybody wanted a basket, I got one basket. I don't know what I got it hanging in the dining room, or if it's still in the attic, and I got her tray. She made these oval trays,
Mhm.
all woven,
Mhm.
and then she'd put a piece of flowered material in it, very pretty material,
Mhm.
and then she'd put a piece of glass over the top of it,
Mhm.
and then she'd take a piece of cane, and it was kind of rounded,
Mhm.
and it would go all around the inside, around the edge of the glass.
Mhm.
And I got one up in the attic. Of course, I took the glass and the thing out, and I hand painted flowers in the bottom of it.
Mhm.
And then I showed her a picture one time of a basket that was hanging. It had a lid on it, and then it had the basket, and it had a hole in it like a bird's house with a little stick sticking out. So I showed it to her, and I said, "Do you think you can make me something like this?" And she did.
Mhm.
And I used to have flowers, plastic stuff,
Mhm.
coming out of the basket, and a little bird on the thing. And
Oh,
I used
okay.
to have it hanging in the dining room. That's still up in the attic.
Mhm.
And I had a rocking chair, a rocking chair that I caned, a small black rocking chair that I caned. And Ruth Ann borrowed it one time when she lived in Spring Lake, and she never returned it. And I went over there one time to visit her, and the rocking chair was sitting in the living room, and she had a round cover, like a little rug,
Mhm.
round, over the seat. So I went over and I picked the rug up, and the whole cane that I did was all busted.
Oh.
One of Keith's kids broke it. I don't know who it was, but they just broke the
Or it
whole...
could have been me. You never know, Grandma.
No, you weren't born then.
Oh, okay.
No, and it just ruined it. I think the rocking chair is out in the garage, out in the barn now.
Oh.
So,
Do you remember Mom's, well, now that Mom's going on to her 3rd wedding, can you tell me anything about her 1st or 2nd wedding? I have a,
her first wedding, she married Tony,
right, Tony Vaccaro.
and she had a big wedding, a very big wedding, because Tony had a lot of family,
Uh-huh.
and she was married in the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
She had a great big wedding
Where was that at? What
in
church?
Asbury Park.
Oh, okay.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think it was Asbury Park. And then after the wedding, one of Tony's uncles owned a big restaurant. I forget what highway it was.
Mhm.
And we had a huge supper in there.
Mhm.
Huge, great big dinner for the wedding.
Mhm.
It was a big wedding.
Mhm.
Very big wedding.
And what about her wedding to my dad? Do you remember that at all? They have a very small album. It's a little red thing. I have it actually, just some black and white, or maybe they're color. I don't remember. Very old pictures,
I don't
but
remember her marrying Keith.
well, she must have, because I'm here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I don't remember anything about it.
You don't remember going?
I don't even remember that.
Huh. Must not have been very memorable.
No, I don't remember doing that. I know she married Keith, and he had 2 daughters and 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruth Ann had Mike and Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't get along.
You mean Mike and Lisa and Dad's kids? Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't get along too good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And then there comes me.
and then comes you. And that's the end of it.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Oh.
Well, it looks like we got about 15 minutes left on the tape. If you want, we can walk through the house if you want to point some stuff out.
Oh, there's nothing to point out, so...
Well, if you have anything out here that's easy to get to that that belonged to your mom or that your mother made, or any family history kind of stuff that's kind of easy to get to? Something we could see or something I could film?
Well, the only thing she made, well, she made me a couple of quilts, but I gave the quilts to Ruth Ann.
Okay. Well, this is so someday, when you're not here anymore, we know what's got to stay in the family.
Yeah.
So if you want to point anything out in the house that's got to stay...
Most of the stuff is mine from flea markets and antique shows and...
Oh, well, we know that.
Yes, sir, you can look at it, yeah.
Well, what about the thing you have on your dresser, the bonnet basket you were telling me about? There was a little...
That's well, years ago, back in the 1800s, I guess, or the 1700s, women wore hats to bed. I guess because, well, they didn't have heat in the house, and I guess they wore hats to keep their head warm. So I got the bonnet basket in on my dresser, and it's got a bonnet in it. It's like all crocheted.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
So that's the bonnet basket, what they used to keep their bonnets in.
Oh, and you got the things on the wall, too, from the 1700s, that thing from Perth Amboy, and you've got those original document things or whatever.
All those documents are hanging on the bedroom wall.
Yeah.
About some guy was donated land from Perth Amboy all the way to, it was Perth Amboy to, I don't know, to New York or something. It was acres and acres of land. This was back in, I think, the 1700s. It was donated to him or something. It was a lot of land.
And how did Grandpa get those? Do you even remember how you got those papers?
Yeah, they...
was somebody burning all this stuff and getting rid of it?
Years ago, where Highway 33 is now, where the gas station is, right over where the highway is, it goes past it. Right in that spot was the Old Trap Tavern. And the wagons and the stagecoaches used to come up Highway 33. But it wasn't Highway 33. It was Shore Road. They called it Shore Road. And at that time, Allaire, it was an ironworks where they made everything in iron and pipes and everything. And they used to load up the wagons, the horse and wagons with the pipes, and they'd come over and they'd come up where it was Shore Road, what was Highway 33. They'd come up and they'd stop at Trap Tavern. It was a beautiful big building. If you ever want to see it, go into the museum.
You drew a picture of it, right?
Yeah. Well, I got pictures of it on paper that I took of it was in the newspaper. And it was a beautiful, big, old building. Oh, that thing was really built. It looked like a big, heavy building. Beautiful. And the wagons and the horse and wagons carrying all the iron from Allaire would come up 33, and they would stop at Old Trap Tavern. And then they would continue. This was the main road then. This Corley's Avenue. It was the main road until you got down to the end where it goes into 33. And it would continued right on through that and down to wherever. They would go to New York or something with they traveled a good distance delivering all that iron pipe and everything.
But what about the papers burning? You were
all those papers came out of Trap Tavern. And when they decided to extend 33, because they used to come to where Trap Tavern was and then come down Curley's Avenue, because it wasn't Curley's Avenue then. They'd come down Curley's Avenue and go out. So the state decided that they wanted to continue 33 straight, and in between where the light is up here, where the end of Curley's Avenue is, from there all the way down to 33, before it was 33, was all farmland, and it ended right down here where Curley's Avenue ends by the golf course, and then you go from Curley's right on into 33. Well, from there all the way up to here where the gas station is, the state bought all the farms out, and they moved Old Trap Tavern they moved it over to where the gas station is now. And that thing sat there for years, and it's a shame they let that thing fall apart. They should have preserved it. That was a big mistake. So anyway, they moved Old Trap Tavern where the gas station is. And then they built 33 from there all the way to where Curley's Avenue goes into, or where the golf course is. That they extended 33.
Right.
So, let's see.
You said all the papers that were burning were coming from Trap
so
Tavern?
when they were going to tear the after they moved it, they neglected Old Trap Tavern, and it started to rot and everything. Instead of them fixing it, it was a shame. All the papers that was in Old Trap Tavern, they moved those papers upstairs in the apartment over the little store that's there now, and there was an old lady lived there, and she was going to move, and they took all the Neil Jelliff. He took all the papers that she had from Old Trap Tavern and put them in his attic. And then one day when Grandpa was coming up the road, he saw him out in the yard burning stuff. So Grandpa stopped to see what he was doing, and here he was burning all these very old papers and everything.
And important documents and history. And
it was history, all burned, going up in smoke. And Grandpa stopped him. He says, "Don't burn any more of those papers." He says, "Give them to me." So we've got more papers somewhere in this house. I imagine it's in that cabinet. But the oldest ones he put in frames
on the wall,
and they're hanging in the bedroom wall. And it was a shame that he burnt all those. He cleaned his attic out, and he thought, well, their old papers are no good, so he started to burn them.
Right.
But that was a shame.
But even then, I mean, whatever year this was, you see something from the 17, 1800s that's still
when
old.
he found their papers, and he knew Grandpa was interested in all that stuff, he would have given him the papers. Now, can you imagine what he burned?
Yeah.
All those beautiful old documents, what he burned, they go back to the 1700s. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we got some hanging on the wall. Thank God we saved them. And I think there's a box of smaller ones. And then there was a little booklet in there for the little general store where he kept a record. People would get things on time, like they'd buy potatoes or something or whatever, and then they'd write it down in his book, you know, what they owed, and 25 cents or 50 cents. It was pennies. And
wait, who was this that had this book?
it was in the book with the papers.
At Trap Tavern, you mean?
The lady that lived in the thing, I think they were in the papers that she had. And it had a book in there, and it listed what so-and-so bought. They wouldn't say, they'd say John Smith, but they wouldn't say Mrs. Smith or whatever her name would be. They would say Smith's wife. It was always wife. It was never her name. It was always John's wife or Joe's wife or whatever.
Was this an old Trap Tavern log of things people bought there, you mean?
No, they bought it in the general store.
Oh, the general store, okay.
The little store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And things were pretty cheap then.
$5
for a basket of strawberries. I mean, 5 cents for a basket of strawberries. You know, something like that. That's the prices were very low.
Is there anything you could think of in this house that would be most valuable to the family? I mean, I already know, you know, where those documents are and things like that, and I know that you have a lot of Grandpa's newspaper articles and stuff in that drawer in front of the window in the living room.
Yeah.
Is there any other hidden places around here where you've got any kind of family history, things from...
No, most of the papers and everything are all in that drawer. And pictures of Grandpa that were in the newspaper. They're all in that drawer in the
And I've got the book at my house with the Boy Scouts and the Indians and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to organize that a little bit. I know Mom has some rings from your mother.
Yeah.
Do you have any photographs of your mother or
I got
Grandpa's family or any kind of pictures anywhere?
I got a photograph of my grandfather,
Okay.
and it's hanging on the wall in that other bedroom, right next to the grandfather clock.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. I've seen that.
And he was a doctor.
This is the one that had the college degree on the sheepskin.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's in a roll. That's in a cardboard roll.
And it's in Latin on sheepskin, right?
Yeah.
And you brought it to your heart doctor because he was interested in it,
Yeah,
right?
and he made a copy of it and gave it to his son, and his son took it to college because he was studying to be a doctor.
Uh-huh.
So, well, he made a copy of it, and when he showed me the copy, it was 2 small pieces and it had a lot of black strips
Yeah.
in it, you know, very bad.
Yeah.
So Grandpa had he had one copied. He had 2 of them copied in full size.
Mm-hmm.
So I rolled it up and I put elastic around it, and I took it to my doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And gave it to the girl at the desk, and I said, will you put this on Dr. Rubenstein's desk?
Mm-hmm.
I says, it's a copy of my great-grandfather's medical diploma.
Mm-hmm.
So she put it on his desk, so when I had my next appointment, I asked him if he got it. He says, oh yeah. He says, my son has it now, and he's studying to be a doctor. So he took it to college with him, and he says the class was all looking at it and studying it and trying to read the Latin.
Yeah.
Because they
What
were all,
college was it that he went to,
I
or
don't
what
know.
medical
The-
school?
The doctor didn't,
Oh.
he didn't say.
So where is that now? Where in the house do you keep that?
That's in the drawer. I showed Ruth Ann what it is. In the cabinet by the front window
Mm-hmm.
that has my automobiles and stuff on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the living room or
No,
the dining room?
room,
Oh,
right
okay.
in here.
Okay.
You want to see it?
Okay. Sure. Yeah, we'll go see it real quick.
Jacobbo Mackenzie. And this is sheepskin.
Oh, okay.
It's
Maybe try
sheepskin.
to turn it this way so I can...
See, and it's all written in Latin. And this was his diploma from medical school.
It's hard to...
Yeah, I don't know what the date is on here. There's some writing
Oh,
down
very
here. I
old.
don't know what that is. And this is kind of worn down.
Oh,
This,
okay.
Jacobo Mackenzie.
That's an interesting name. It's like Jacob without the...
Yeah,
or Jacob with an O.
Yeah. So you have to read it, but it's all in Latin, so I couldn't read it.
Yeah.
So it's in here.
Okay.
And
As long as we know where to find it someday.
so it's in the top drawer.
Okay.
Now this is old. This goes way back. So that is in there.
And don't you have a plate here that was Grandpa's mother's that's real old? Isn't that somewhere on a shelf here?
There's 2 brown ones up there. There's 2 together. There wasn't room to put both out, so I put the 2 of them together.
So one is behind the other.
One is behind the other. And that was
Okay,
given
so
to
the
her
brown
as
one
a-
all the way on the left.
Yeah, that was given to her as a wedding present.
Oh, okay. And about how old do you think those plates are?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Grandpa would have been 90 years old. Oh, I can't get, oh, there, here it goes. Why is it, you can always take it out, but you can never get it back in. Here.
Mm-hmm.
There. There's a picture in there of my half-brother. My father was married before he married my mother, and
Oh, okay.
he had a son.
Mm-hmm. This is your real father you're talking about,
I'm
your
talking about
biological
real
father. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a son.
Oh, okay. What was his name?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. And there's a picture of him in that...
There's a picture in there, and Peggy wants to see it because he looked like one of the actors. What the heck is his name? Can't think of it now. And that's why Peggy wanted it because he looked just like this very famous actor.
Oh, well, I guess if we saw it, we'd know who it was.
Yeah.
Did you have any other brothers and sisters?
I had a sister, Ruth, and I had a brother, Freddie, and I had a brother, James. They're all gone now. I'm the only one left in the family.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting that you had a sister named Ruth, too.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know who she was named after.
Do you think she'd be hurt if she knew that you named Mom after the soap star instead of her?
No, no. No, no.
Were you real close with them or no?
Oh, yeah, my sister I was.
Yeah.
My brothers, I saw them once in a while. I didn't see them all the time. My oldest brother, when he got married, they moved in with her family.
Mhm.
And when anybody in the family got married, they moved in. So the house was all family,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And they weren't very, they weren't people that you'd like to go visit, and, you know, they were kind of cold, like,
Oh.
you know,
Yeah.
very friendly.
Oh.
So,
Okay. Well, it looks like we're just about to run out of tape here. So, state your name for the camera.
Ellen Gertrude Lang.
And they used to call you Dirty Gertie, right?
Gertie Gertie.
Yeah. And Trisha used to call you Guma.
Guma.
Yeah.
Hey, Guma.
Okay, Grandma. Wave to the camera. Okay, bye.